From Neyland Stadium here in Knoxville, we welcome you to the 2018 Tennessee Spring Football Game. A gorgeous afternoon for some football as Jeremy Pruitt makes his debut down the sidelines. And speaking of that, moments ago, Gene Wojciechowski had a chance to catch up with the coach.
Coach, January 8th, you were coaching as a defensive coordinator in the national championship game. 3.5 months later, you're head coach here at Tennessee, coaching the spring game. I know it's not the same thing, but what sort of emotions are you feeling today?
All I know is as time flies, it seems like that was only yesterday, but we've got a great atmosphere. Our kids are excited to compete, and I'm looking forward to see how guys respond today.
As you start the rebuild of this program, what do you realistically want to see from your guys today?
We want to see our guys do their best. We'll see if they can execute on offense, if we'll run to the ball on defense, if we play with the right attitude, if we can finish drives on offense, take care of the ball, and see if we can execute in the kicking game.
All right, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Gene, and welcome up here to our broadcast position. Dave Neal alongside former Alabama quarterback Greg McElroy. Glad you could join us today. And Greg, let's start with this. Big picture. Last year was probably the most disappointing season in the history of Tennessee football. 4-8, didn't win a conference game. How do you flush that out and move forward?
It doesn't matter. Rip off the rearview mirror. It's a completely new regime, and the optimism that surrounds this program, from the players to the coaches and the fans especially, they recognize that it is a new era being ushered in by Jeremy Pruitt. Last year doesn't matter. Forget about it and move on, focusing on the improvements necessary in order to compete more consistently in the 2018 season.
Well, part of the program change is on the field with new defensive scheme, new offensive scheme. So today, where will your eyes be? Let's start offensively.
Well, let's go with the quarterbacks. I mean, there's a quarterback competition, and spring ball is really where you can accelerate that decision that's going to be made by Jeremy Pruitt. Jarrett Garantano played well at times last year, only 1-5 record to show for it though, so he needs to be more consistent in the passing game, and he's going up against Will McBride today. They'll be on the same team, they'll be competing, and that'll be the position that I'm focusing most on, but might not be decided today, Dave, because Keller Chryst, the grad transfer from Stanford, set to arrive in a couple months.
Matter of fact, there will be a lot of changes between now and when fall practice begins. And speaking of beginning, we will get underway here in Knoxville with this spring football game, and they will kick things off, but it will be a thud situation. Actually, they're going to go ahead and hit to take them to the ground. A little shocking start for us. Didn't expect to see that right out of the gates. As we take a look at our format for today, we'll have a running clock for the most part today, 15-minute quarters in today's contest. Coach Pruitt wanted this to be a real game day-like atmosphere. We will stop it for change of possessions, and we'll have a couple of TV timeouts in there. And then in the last 4 minutes of each half, we will play as normal with the clock stoppages, etc., as a normal football game. So the Orange will have the football first. Jarrett Garantano will run the first-team offense. And how this is broken down, by the way, before we get too far along, it'll be the first-team offense against the first-team defense, second-team offense against second-team defense, and they have split those up respectively on those teams. So Jarrett Garantano, the redshirt sophomore. Ty Chandler is his running back. He is the one that certainly will have to take up the slack left by John Kelly, who declared himself eligible for the NFL draft after last season. And that's going to be an interesting position as well as you move forward.
Every position is up for grabs. Jeremy Pruitt came on campus, watched the tape, said, you know what, it's not even really worth it to look back and try to evaluate who these guys were in the previous regime. It's a different offensive style, it's a different philosophy in the trenches, it's a commitment more to running the football. So really the evaluation started at the beginning of spring and will continue all the way through fall camp.
Garantano going deep, looking near side. That pass is incomplete. Looking for Josh Palmer down the near sideline. Talking to Coach Pruitt yesterday, talking about how did Jarrett perform, how did Will McBride perform. It wasn't all roses this spring for the quarterbacks.
No, it wasn't. And it takes time, too. I mean, think about it. Will McBride and Jarrett Garantano recruited under Butch Jones. to play that tempo, spread style of offense. So when you're changing from a spread style to a pro style, it's going to take more than 15 practices. That's why Jeremy Pruitt, I think, secretly wanted to have 20 more to try to evaluate these guys, because they're just learning so much right now. It's difficult to really go out there and put your best foot forward at that position.
Joe Doyle with a 33-yard punt, but there is no doubt he went out and got himself some excellent assistant coaches. Tyson Helton was out at Southern California running the quarterback situation, passing game coordinator, working with Sam Darnold out there. And he's got guys that have been around this game a long time and guys that are friends of his as well.
And around this area, of course, recruiting is the name of the game in the Southeastern Conference. Look at those schools: Georgia, Florida, Alabama. So many ties to the programs that have been most successful of late. So Jeremy Pruitt did a great job assembling the staff.
Here's Will McBride at quarterback for the white team. His first pass going up top, and he has a man just out of the reach of Jordan Murphy, a sophomore out of Hattiesburg, Tennessee.
Take the top off the defense, why don't you? Little play action, deep post, Will McBride. A little too much energy, a little more air underneath that, and it's a touchdown. That first throw, you get a gauge of what the adrenaline's like. Clearly, heart pumping a little more today with thousands in the stands.
Trey Coleman on that carry. He'll pick up a couple of yards. Will McBride last year started against Missouri. In that game, 16 of 32, 139 yards, a touchdown, a couple of interceptions. Overall, completed just 42% of his passes and got banged up down the stretch.
Kind of a savvy kid, though, and Jeremy Pruitt said he's really having his best practices of late, coming in to the spring game after really putting together a nice week over the last few days.
Plenty of time for McBride, and that one is picked off. Down to the 35, the 30-yard line. Flags will come out. Theo Jackson with the interception. The sophomore out of Nashville, Tennessee, returns it all the way down to the 15. We'll see what those flags are. It'll be a 47-yard return.
The interception will definitely stand. The flag came in late in the return. Might be a face mask.
During the return, personal foul, face mask on the kicking team, number 74. Half the distance to the goal, first down.
That'll go down on the quarterback. But the throw, for the most part, was decent. Over the middle, the wide receiver's got to look this in. It was behind him for sure, a little bit late. He throws it a little earlier. He hits the receiver in stride. It's just unfortunate circumstances for Will McBride on the interception. A good job defensively, though, closing the gap, limiting the throwing lane, having a very positive return to give this first offense great field position.
Inside the 10-yard line, they'll hand it off left side. Ty Chandler gets a couple of yards on the play. Cortez Sapp, who will be a big factor defensively for Tennessee. And we haven't really touched on the defensive side of things yet, but this is a defense that certainly has some holes in the secondary. And there are some guys that are difference makers not practicing of late, not playing in this game. And Darren Kirkland, Daniel Batuli. And off right side again goes to Chandler, and he stood up at the 3-yard line and driven back.
It's encouraging, though, to see this defense rallying to the football. I mean, there were so many times, especially against the run last year. Let's keep in mind, I mean, this defense gave up 251 yards a game on the ground. That was good for 125th in college football. They might not have the depth yet that they're eventually going to get. You can see the two starting linebackers sidelined today. But that depth's going to come. It's the attention to details and staying within the scheme that they've preached this spring, and it's paying some pretty good dividends early.
Flag down the far side. Pass is caught over there by Callaway. The fade route from Garantano. He beats Buchanan. We'll see if it holds up.
Offside on the defense. That penalty is declined. Touchdown.
Well, we asked a couple of the players yesterday who's been making some of the wow plays during spring practice, and well, it was Callaway's name that came up first.
A couple times.
So the orange team trying to add the extra points. Brent Samaglio gets it through the uprights, but Callaway and the orange team strike first on a fade route on 3rd down and goal, and they lead 7-0. And welcome to Knoxville, Tennessee, on the banks of the Tennessee River. We're inside Neyland Stadium, just underway of the 2018 Tennessee spring game under their new head coach, Jeremy Pruitt. And just moments ago, the orange team, the first team offense, strikes first in this spring game against the first team defense. Garantano hits Callaway, and it's 7-0 the orange team after an interception set this up. 1st and goal inside the 10-yard line. Dave Neal alongside former Alabama quarterback Greg McElroy. And Greg, certainly this is a new Tennessee era. You know, they've had their share of coaches over the last decade. They hope that they can kind of get some consistency with Coach Pruitt. What are you going to keep an eye on today? What's important to you from your perspective?
I want to see how physical they're playing. I want to see how the offense and the defense have taken to these new schemes that this coaching staff is trying to implement. And I have eyes on the quarterback position naturally. But Jeremy Pruitt just preached competition and being physical and attention to detail. Those are the things that can be on display in front of thousands of Volunteers fans here in Neyland Stadium.
And let's face it, we'll get into this more, but the last month of the season when Butch Jones was fired all the way through, the fact that they couldn't come up with a coach, it was just complete turmoil around this football program. And Jeremy Pruitt trying to settle not just his team, but the fan base as well. And I think he's done a nice job of that. So Will McBride, who just threw an interception a moment ago, back under center, as the white team will work out of that I formation. There's the handoff off the left side. It'll get out to the 29-yard line, a gain of 5. Take a look at our format for today. And this will be a running clock situation. We'll stop it for change of possessions and a couple of TV timeouts. And then last 4 minutes of each half, we will go to regular clock rules. On 2nd down, Trey Coleman with that carry picks up 4 yards. Gene Wojciechowski's down on the sidelines. And, of course, Gene, this is a guy who is a Tennessee alum. Interested to get your perspective on how this has all been coming together for Tennessee.
Well, you know, I was at a practice on Thursday, and they don't usually let the media out there, only glimpses at time. And you talked about the competition that Pruitt is trying to instill here. And it is a situation where everything is going 100% all the time. Unlike Butch Jones, there is no music. There is no music at practice. There is no microphones. They are complete business all the time. Tracy Rocker, the defensive line coach, was telling his players, no more happy days. Happy days are over. We're seeing it today.
Yeah, it is definitely a different attitude, mindset around the Tennessee program, and we're getting a glimpse of that here today in Knoxville. Timeout on the field. We'll be back after this.
More.
Well, on November 12th, that is the day that Tennessee and their AD John Curry decided to release Butch Jones from his job as head coach. And then on November 26th, it appeared that Greg Schiano was headed this way, reportedly offered the job, but there was a lot of turmoil involved in that decision. And then there was a couple of days in late November, Mike Gundy, Jeff Brom, Dave Dorn, all apparently offered the job and declined it. Then on December 1st, Philip Fulmer was hired as the new athletic director, and it didn't take him very long to find his man, and that was Jeremy Pruitt over in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And certainly the folks here, in what was a stormy situation, kind of found some peace with that decision. And of course, Philip Fulmer, the former coach here, and so well respected, and a football guy, matching wits with another football guy, and I think that is such a blessing if you're a Tennessee fan to have those two in charge.
No doubt, and I think Jeremy Pruitt he's going to bring that Alabama mentality. Of course, he's been at so many places. Every stop he's been, he's experienced success. And if you talk to Tennessee coaches and players and fans, they said we kind of wanted Jeremy Pruitt from the beginning. So even though this coaching search was roundabout, very negative and very public, it ended up working out perfectly for this program and the direction that they're wanting to head.
Paxton Brooks with that kick, not a very good one, just 24 yards, the early enrollee freshman. But here's a look at the coaching career of Jeremy Pruitt. Of course, started at the high school level, then quickly found his way over to Alabama as director of player personnel and worked his way up. And at Florida State, when he became a defensive coordinator, had one of the best defenses in the country and continued that. Took a Georgia team that was really struggling defensively and got them in the top 30 the very next year and the top 15 the year after that.
I met Jeremy Pruitt in 2007. He literally worked us out in the weight room. Who's this guy? I mean, to see where he's at now is not at all surprising, knowing how much he appreciates the game and how much time and energy he invests into the players. But, I mean, he's been bound for stardom for quite some time. You see what Kirby Smart's done at Georgia and how quickly he's gotten that program turned around and contending for national championships. I think he's trying to lay the same blueprint. It's going to be tough. The East continues to improve. But Tennessee is a place with a lot of tradition and history.
Handoff off to Tim Jordan off the left side. With this offense, Greg, and you speak to this for me a little bit, and that is you go from kind of a spread formation, right? You've got guys that are spread formation type of players. Now you're going to work back into more pro-style offense. What does that mean for the players that are here, and how long does that transition take to get the players you need?
It takes some time, because naturally when you look at spread teams, they're not that big. They kill you with tempo. Now they want to kill you with force and strength. So they have really made it a high priority in recruiting and in the weight room and the development program to get bigger, to get stronger, to be able to impose your will at the line of scrimmage, which is not something that you're often asked to do when you orient out of a spread offense with 4 wide receivers on the field almost all the time.
And you're looking at a quarterback in Jarrett Garantano, who came out, was a 4-star recruit, was considered the 4th-ranked dual-threat quarterback in the country coming out of high school. Now you're asking him to kind of do things a little bit differently than what he's been doing for the last 3 or 4 years of his high school / college career. Here's Jordan off the left side. He'll get 3 yards on that one.
That's why, regardless of how things go today, the grade for Jarrett Garantano and Tyson Helton, the offensive coordinator, the grade is incomplete, because you can't learn this system. You can't implement this system, know all the nuances and the checks and the adjustments and the progressions. You can't know that after 15 practices. But after you get 25 more in the fall, these guys will be well-oiled and ready to go.
Garantano coming near side to the end zone. Pass is batted around and looking for Josh Palmer, and it'll fall incomplete. Don't forget, when we come back at the beginning of the second quarter, Philip Fulmer will join Gene Wojciechowski down on the sideline. We'll hear from Tennessee's athletic director. We're going to send you down to the field, get up close with Coach Pruitt, and get his vantage point.
I'm getting in the huddle. I'm going in the huddle.
Call a couple plays.
I'm going to go call a couple plays. If they're blitzing, though, which I saw in the last play, I want no part of being in the action. Yeah. I'll stand way back.
Smokey already breathing heavy. So we'll run one final play before the end of the first quarter. Garantano lofts it up in the air, and Callaway incomplete, out of bounds. He already has one touchdown catch, but that'll go incomplete. So that'll be the end of the first 15 minutes. The first team offense scores against the first team defense, and the orange team leads at 7-0.
That is the end of the first quarter.
We will come back, have second quarter football from Neyland Stadium right here on the SEC Network. Years ago, Tennessee won their national championship. Fiesta Bowl was January 4th of 1999. It was the first ever BCS championship game. Defensive MVP Dwayne Goodrich had a pick 6. T. Martin had an outstanding game. He had 2 touchdown passes, including one that went 79 yards to Peerless Price in the 4th quarter that provided the difference as number 1 Tennessee knocked off number 2 Florida State 23-16. Hard to believe it has been 20 years since that national championship. We'll talk to Coach Philip Fulmer about that here in a few moments as Tennessee tries the field goal. Brent Cimaglia from 43 yards away gives the Orange a 10-0 advantage as we open up 2nd quarter play at the Tennessee spring game under their first-year head coach Jeremy Pruitt. Talking to the coach yesterday, he is not sold on any of his kickers at this point. Now, Cimaglia last year, 8 of 13, actually came on as a freshman and hit a 51-yarder against the Gators, which was the longest for Tennessee since the 2013 season. He certainly is the front runner to take over the kicking duties, but Coach Pruitt wasn't very committal on anybody's position as he looks ahead to next season. Well, speaking of Coach Fulmer and that 20-year anniversary of the national championship, he's alongside Gene Wojciechowski.
Various ways. Coach, I was with you here in this stadium in 2008, November, your last game here as a coach. Less than 10 years later, you're now the athletic director, just signed a new 4-year deal, and you hired Jeremy Pruitt, the 4th coach since you were dismissed here. What has this process been like for you?
Well, you know, for us in general, I think we've kind of been wandering through the desert a little bit. You know, now I think we've hired a really fine football coach. You know, when you think in the interview that you got the right guy, you know, it's the first time and hadn't gone through much. Now, 4 months later, I know we have the right guy. He's done a great job of getting in energy and enthusiasm back around our program. And we have all these former Lettermen coming back now. They feel welcome, and I think that's partly because I'm back and because Jeremy's done a super job. So I think we're on the rise, to say the least.
There's no delicate way of putting this. It was a bit of a dumpster fire during that chaos, trying to find a new coach. What is the difference between then and now?
Well, I like to look forward. You know, I think that all that kind of went on before I was hired. You know, we went through a 6-day grind, you know, to find the right guy. I think just it's a simple fact that I was a coach and I could call coaches and they're going to tell me the truth. They're not playing a game with an athletic director necessarily. I'm a peer, you know, to them. And a lot of people around, all the people that I interviewed, we chatted about it, and I think we came away with a really fine football coach, a black and white kind of guy, no nonsense kind of guy. That's what we need right now.
You mentioned the former Letterman here last night for a gala, about 150 or so, I was told. I was also told that one of the Lettermen actually broke down in tears because he was so happy that things have sort of finally turned around. What does that mean to you?
Well, I don't think anybody had necessarily any ill will. They just didn't know. I mean, they hadn't been part of our culture. They probably weren't trusted a lot because they were from the outside. And you know, and this is a very family atmosphere is very important to our people. And I know these people, and this job has not been hard because, you know, it's challenging certainly, but I know where the bones are buried. I know the good guys, the bad guys, you know, all those kinds of things. And for these Lettermen, I mean, we all connect through that. And Doug Dickey's back here today, and really he connects the past and the future. He was my athletic director, my coach in college, so it's been a lot of fun, to be honest with you, Gene.
Finally, you know what it's like to have to rebuild a program. Realistically, what are we looking at here? What would you like volunteer fans to know about this turnaround?
I mean, we said it everywhere we go. You know, we expect to win every game that we play, but the realism of it right now is we've got a ways to go. Recruiting is going to take a couple years to get guys that look like the guys at Georgia and Alabama, you know, and play like that. Now, we know how to practice. We're getting there with this group of coaches and stuff, but it's a long haul. When I took over, we were kind of here, and I went to here. When, you know, Jeremy's down here. He's got a ways to go to get us back, and that should be a welcome mat to every prospect out there, because the opportunity at a great university, you know, and a great fan base. Just look at today, you know, great fan base is here at Tennessee.
Fellas, back up to you. Thank you, Coach.
Great stuff, Gene. It's wonderful to hear Coach kind of give his perspective on where things are, the state of Tennessee football. And as he said, he is looking forward and not backwards. And, of course, earlier there was a practice. He mentioned Coach Dickey was on hand and Coach Majors was there. And so, I mean, you've got a lot of Tennessee minds kind of just hanging around this program right now. And Jeremy Pruitt, when you think about where Tennessee was under Coach Fulmer's trying to get back to a level, at least back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's hard to believe it's been since 2007 that this team has won an SEC East championship. And it's been since 1998 that they won an SEC championship. There's a little reverse. Garantano gets lit up as Josh Palmer tried to get the corner, can't do it. Down on the field is my partner. He sprinted down to the field. Did you see that block, Greg McElroy?
I saw the attempt at the block.
There you go.
The attempt at the block. And we have to grade effort in the spring game as much as anything. That's an A+ for effort. As Jarrett Garantano looking at him as soon as he got hit. He looks back at Jeremy Pruitt, smiling. Jeremy Pruitt smiles back at him. So that was quite the exchange between the quarterback and his new head coach.
Well, the replay even exemplified the impact of that hit a little bit more. So Garantano will shake it off and stand in the pocket and throw down to the far side. That one is caught by Palmer, and that'll be a first down. How'd that throw look?
That was a nice throw right there on the sideline. Really nice throw. And if you watch Jarrett Garantano, he doesn't have a huge arm, but that's fine. He can anticipate, and that's where he needs to grow as a player. He needs to grow from an anticipation standpoint, and that comes with comfort, and that comes with reps and maturity. So last year, seeing what he was, knowing what he could eventually become, I'm quite encouraged about the development that he has a chance to make here in the next couple years.
That pass was ruled incomplete. Bobbing on that sideline. Garantano will stand in the pocket again. Over the middle. This time a lot of room there. And out to the 40-yard line goes Palmer. And he'll be stopped there. But across midfield, the offense will travel. A gain of 23 on that pitch and catch. Nigel Warrior, strong safety who they expect great things from this year, makes the tackle. Quickly to the line of scrimmage. They'll go hand off to Jordan. He's got some running room. Jordan to the 20, stiff arm to the 15, and they'll spot him out of bounds around the 12, and a late flag comes in. A 28-yard pickup. Like Schamberger with a late hit out of bounds.
Flag after the play.
After the play was over, personal foul on the defense, number 15, hit out of bounds. Half the distance to the goal from the end of the run. Automatic first down.
Here's another look at it as Jordan sees a little crease, and watch 15 in white with a little extra shove. And that'll move the orange offense just outside the 5-yard line. Jordan, a sophomore out of Winter Haven, Florida. Gets the handoff, makes a man miss, comes near side, and will get into the end zone. And the first team offense sticking it to the first team defense here in the first quarter and change. It's now 16-0. Awaiting the point after. Good job by Jordan to make that first defender miss. Boy, this offense, first team offense, had a short field to work with, picked up a touchdown on a little fade route in the corner, and a nice drive there, capped off by the Jordan 5-yard run. Samaglia converts on the point after, so it is 17-0 Orange.
Last season, we knew we could have done a lot better. We knew we let down a lot of people. So this year, we're looking to change it.
I mean, last year's a thing in the past, you know what I mean? We kind of buried the hatchet. We ready to move forward. We didn't come here to win 6, 7, 8 games. We came here to be the best that we can possibly be.
Our team wants to be tough, want to be smart, want to be able to compete for 4 quarters.
We're working hard to be, a reinvented team, to be a new team, and we don't want to look back in the past anymore. It's done. You had to go through it, and it's going to make us a better team.
It is a new era for Tennessee football, and this team certainly beat up in so many different ways. In 2017, that 0-8 conference season, 4-8 overall, and being in this building for that season finale against Vanderbilt, you could just see that the team just wasn't in it. Kickoff sails through the end zone, but they'll do a little toss to Princeton fans. 17-0 Orange out in front, and we heard the players talking about the direction and the future of this team. Greg, let me ask you this. Now, you weren't on any teams that suffered like they did. I don't think you ever in your life were. I don't think many people have been. But how as a player do you get over that, and will it take a while to flush that as a player?
Well, it just doesn't matter. So as a player, you can sit there, you can be disappointed, you can be embarrassed. There's a number of different adjectives that you can use to describe the experience. But you know that every single person that's now associated with the program has absolutely no recollection, nor do they care about anything that transpired last year. Every player, starters, doesn't matter if you played 40 games, if you're an All-American, doesn't matter. Every single player came into this spring with a clean slate, according to Jeremy Pruitt. And that's what you have to do. I think the players respond to that, and they know that they're not going to be defined or characterized by what they've been, only by what they're going to be. And that's, I think, something that every player can rally around.
Yeah, I think rebuilding their confidence was a phrase we heard quite a bit yesterday. As a flag comes down, pass is caught near side. That goes to the tight end, Latrell Bumpus. The other thing I got out of our meetings is talking to the coaches. It certainly was the fact that these players are they're craving some coaching and direction.
Illegal formation on the offense, 5 men in the backfield, 5-yard penalty, replay, second down.
And the thing is, this program and the players that have been recruited to play under Butch Jones, they didn't sign up for 4-8. They signed up at the time when they were building something, when there was hope, when there was an experience that they could potentially go to the SEC championship, win the East. They were ready to break through. They haven't gotten over the hump, but they certainly didn't sign up to play for a program that's underachieved.
All right, timeout on the field. Even 4 minutes to go here before halftime. We'll step aside back to Neyland Stadium right after this. The spring football season continues later today here on the SEC Network with 2 more games at 4 Eastern. First-year head coach Joe Moorhead heads up Mississippi State spring game. Then at 6 Eastern, we're off to Baton Rouge. LSU spring game under the guidance of their second-year head coach Ed Orgeron. Both will be streaming live on the ESPN app, of course. 3 spring football games this Saturday right here on the SEC Network. Will McBride, the second-team offense, with the football. McBride 0 for 4 with a pick to start this spring game. He's flushed out of the pocket and will be touched around the 35-yard line. He'll get a couple of yards on that play. So busy afternoon here in the stadium and on the sidelines. For more on that, let's go down to Gene.
You know, fellas, it wasn't an accident that Phil Fulmer mentioned the idea of recruits paying attention to this program right now, because there are a lot of openings. And before this game started, there certainly was at least a dozen or so recruits down on the sideline. Greg, you mentioned that open competition. I'm curious, with this roster, how many of these guys do you think could start for Alabama right now?
Start at Alabama. Frankly, I mean, there's not really a guy on this team right now that is in the upper echelon, that is a known commodity. Now, in the next 4 months, they might develop into that. There's several guys on this program that were recruited by everybody. but the lack of development over the last couple of years, the fact that they got on campus and they haven't yet reached their potential is somewhat alarming. So if I had to say, I'd say probably none, outside of maybe Trey Smith, who is not participating in the game and didn't participate all spring. He's, of course, one of the best offensive linemen in the country and is heading into his sophomore year.
Trey Smith been working out a little bit with pads on. Saw him before the game today running through some drills out with that undisclosed medical condition. But boy, you hit it, Greg. Just a remarkable freshman season. The first time Tennessee's had a freshman starter at left tackle in over 30 years. Didn't disappoint, but the question is, what will he be like when he does get back on the field? The other thing that came up to in our conversations yesterday was the fact that there could be, when you count the freshmen coming in, maybe some grad transfers, JC guys get here, there could be, and you add the 10 to 12 guys that are out this spring, there could be 30 faces that aren't on the field right now that could be key components to this Volunteer team in the fall. Here's Guarantano showing his elusiveness. They'll mark him down around the 34-yard line, a gain of 17. So what we see down here, Greg, today may not be what we see at all in the fall.
It could be a completely new program, but that's to be expected. When you have a new coaching staff and he's trying to change philosophies and he's really trying to get his guys and get the guys currently on the roster to buy in, it's not uncommon to rely heavily on newcomers, some JUCO players and some freshmen.
One of those guys that we're talking about is at quarterback, and Keller Chryst, the grad transfer that will graduate from Stanford in June, started 13 games for the Cardinal, went 11-2 in those starts, went 6-0 in 2016 as a starter, but lost the job midway through last year to the freshman KJ Costello. Certainly a guy that fits this offense maybe a little bit better, and certainly a guy I think a lot of Tennessee fans will have their eyes on when he gets here in the fall. For more on that, let's go down to Gene.
Yeah, I talked to Keller Chryst last night. He's, of course, still back at Stanford. He graduates June 17th, but he hopes to be at UT by June 1st. He's going to go back to Stanford for his commencement ceremony, but he's already dialed in. He told me earlier this morning via text that he's going to watch this spring game. He was here about 2 weeks ago for about a week, sat in on some of the meetings with the coaches, is not allowed to sit in with the players. He visited Bama out of high school, so he's familiar somewhat with the SEC, but went with Stanford. But he loves the idea of a new life experience, of playing in the SEC. He loves this UT coaching staff, and really does so with the blessings of Stanford coach David Shaw, who actually suggested to Chryst, look, you deserve better than sitting on the bench as a fifth-year guy. And now he's coming here, and he loves the idea of the competition. Nothing has been promised to him, though.
Well, I can tell you this, Jarrett Guarantano, based on the way he's played early today, isn't going to make it easy for Jeremy Pruitt when he does eventually decide. But Keller Chryst's he's a mature player. That him being on the team is going to help this team immensely, especially if they're relying heavily on a lot of freshmen and newcomers. When you have young players, having a good, mature, football-savvy guy like Keller Chryst, he'll help in a lot of ways.
Number 70, 5-yard penalty, still first down.
And Keller, probably one of those guys that certainly Coach Pruitt likes. He seems to be a hard-nosed competitor, comes from a football family, obviously, but tore his ACL in the bowl game against North Carolina in 2016, but rehabbed that extremely well and quickly and got back in to be the starter in the 2017 season, as Guarantano will be recorded as a sack back around the 43-yard line as we approach a minute to go before halftime. But there's a look at the depth chart for Tennessee's quarterbacks, Guarantano and McBride. It seems to me that even though they didn't specify or get into much details, but it seemed to me in our discussions that there was a pretty big gap right now between Guarantano and McBride.
All right, we're getting.
Guarantano will drop it off underneath to Ty Chandler, who is tripped up around the 37-yard line. He'll pick up 5. And the clock runs under a minute. Saw Jeremy Pruitt after the Orange team scored their last touchdown, the second touchdown. Boy, he went over that first-team defense and just lit them up. It may be spring game and fun for the fans, but it's all business for Coach. Guarantano will throw on the run, and they will say pass is caught around the 23-yard line. A gain of 14 goes to Marquez Callaway. Hey, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern here on the SEC Network. It's the SEC Women's Golf Championship from Greystone Golf and Country Club, where match play format will determine the title. Then at 2:30 Sunday afternoon, it's the SEC Women's Tennis Championships from right here in Knoxville. Everything, you can see that streaming live on the ESPN app. 41-yard field goal attempt from Brent Cimaglia from the near hash. Not much of a rush, if any, but Brent's kick is through the upright, so he has connected on 2 field goals today. From 43 and from 41. 15 seconds to go in the first half. Greg McElroy, your thoughts on really what we have seen here in the first 2 quarters?
Tell you what, guys, looking at it up close, I'm very impressed with how the offense is operating. I think Guarantano's gotten off to a really nice start. I think he looks comfortable. Now, there are still issues from time to time when it comes to game management. For instance, taking a sack on 1st and 10 in a 2-minute drill and setting yourself way behind the chains when you have a nice pace and a nice rhythm going within the offense. But that all comes with comfort. Defensively is where I'm a little concerned. I've seen a lack of tackling. I've seen a really inconsistent run fits on a couple different options. And the coverage in the back end, for the most part, hasn't been what I came in here expecting. Now, granted, let's remind everybody that potentially their 2 best offensive players, defensive players, Darren Kirkland and Batuli, they're not going today. So that's a huge vacancy at the second level for this Tennessee defense that are running with the starters. But for the most part, very impressed by the offense. I think the defense has some work to do here in the second half.
There are those 2 young men we're talking about. Darren Kirkland, 34, Daniel Batuli, 35. Batuli busted onto the scene last year when he had 23 tackles against Georgia Tech in that opening game. And Batuli letting some folks hear it over there on the sidelines. He can't put a helmet on right now, but he's certainly involved in the game. And McBride will throw it away, incomplete. That'll leave 1 second left on the clock before halftime. Will McBride here in the first half, just 1 of 6 for 5 yards and an interception that was returned inside the 10-yard line. It set up Tennessee's Orange team's first touchdown. So the Orange team, the first team offense, which has been working against the first team defense on the white side, they will lead 20-0 after 2 quarters of football. Guarantano had a nice first half, 6 of 12, 87 yards and a touchdown. And let's go down to Gene.
Fellas, Jeremy, I know it's a spring game, but that seemed like a regular season chewing out of your first team defense. What was the message that you were trying to send to them?
Well, you know, nobody's responding. All right, when things don't go your way, which they're not always going to go your way, all right, somebody's got to be able to turn the table a little bit there. And everybody's just kind of looking around. So if they're not going to do it, one of the coaches better do it.
All things considered, what did you think of the first half?
Didn't see a lot of folks flying around. You know, I think the Orange team has executed on offense a little better, obviously, than the White team, but I think some of that's got to do with the White defense.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gene. Right after this short break, Marcus Spears will sit down with head coach Jeremy Pruitt to get his thoughts on the season, and we'll also catch up with Vols wide receiver Marquez Callaway. It's all coming up next on the Halftime Report right here on the SEC Network. Welcome back to Neyland Stadium as it's halftime of the 2018 Tennessee Spring Football game. Now, earlier this spring, SEC Network's Marcus Spears sat down with new Tennessee head coach Jeremy Pruitt. Here's their conversation.
I'm glad I get a chance to get you in a laid-back setting. It hadn't been very laid-back around here recently with you coming in, having to put together a staff and all of that. What was the first thing you think you needed to do when you got here as head coach?
Well, the first thing was to find some guys that wanted to come with me, and that wasn't real hard. For a while I've been thinking if I get an opportunity, who's the guys we're going to hire? And one of the first guys I called was one of my best friends, Will Friend. So got him and got some guys on defense that I've worked with before and just kind of started rolling.
Why Tennessee?
Well, to me, Tennessee is one of the premier programs in the country. When I was growing up, I'm from North Alabama, which is about 2.5 hours from here. You used to hear Rocky Top a lot in North Alabama, especially when I was growing up,
Yeah.
I tell all these guys all the time when I was playing, we didn't beat Tennessee. I was in that stretch where 9 years in a row we lost. So we got to get that going again.
Coach, I walked around this facility and now I got killed this past season saying that Tennessee was a top 5 place in the country to coach football. I still believe that. You look at the college football landscape, is this considered all the work that you put in? Is it this moment that kind of validates a lot of the work you put in as a coach?
Well, I'm only 44 years old.
You've been coaching since you was 4, though.
I hope I can. I've only been coaching for 20 years, but I hope I can coach for at least 20 more. So I hope there's a lot bigger moments than right now.
Yeah.
And I hope they're at Tennessee.
Great stuff from Marcus and Coach Pruitt. We'll have more from Neyland Stadium as the Tennessee spring game rolls on right after this. And welcome back to the banks of the Tennessee River as we continue on with the 2018 Tennessee spring football game. And speaking of spring football, well, that will continue later on right here on the SEC Network with 2 more games. At 4 Eastern, first-year head coach Joe Moorhead heads up Mississippi State spring game. Then we'll take you down to Baton Rouge, where head coach Ed Ogeron will guide his LSU Tigers as they wrap up their spring season as well. Both will stream live on the ESPN app. Well, SEC Network's Marcus Spears had a chance to catch up with one of the Vols wide receivers, a certain playmaker in the upcoming season. Let's listen into his conversation with Marquez Callaway.
Georgia Tech game, first game of the season, battle. I'm like, who is this dude? Like, I think everybody was. We were sitting in the green room in Charlotte at SEC Network headquarters. We like, who is Marquez Callaway? You catching dimes on people's head. What is the one catch last year you think was your best one or you remember the most?
It would probably have to be the Georgia Tech game.
Sideline.
Sideline going down.
Dormady to the corner, throws it out, touchdown Tennessee. Every play, a big play from Marquez Callaway.
I want to do a demo. You cool with that?
I'm
not going to ask you to jump because if you get hurt, we'll never be invited back. Hands down. So I'm gonna ask you to go to the corner of the end zone. I'm gonna give you a good ball.
All right.
Everybody at home, he's gonna get a good ball. So if he drops it, it's not my fault. All right, we just disclaim out. That's a bad throw.
I ain't want to say nothing.
Tell me where you want it.
Just throw it.
Back corner?
Just throw it.
All right.
Oh, that's a duck. Oh.
The pylon ain't out there. I would have been better with it.
I understand.
I ain't really know where the corner was. I got these glasses on.
See, when I catch it, the objective is to try to catch the nose of the football. But in a perfect world, that's what you want to do.
All right, I'm going to throw you another one. Show me a squeeze and tuck. All right? And turn.
Squeeze, tuck, turn.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. And you know what that tells me?
What?
If I'm playing DB, I'm breaking that up.
We'll see.
I appreciate it, bro. Keep doing your thing, man. Keep doing your thing. You're playing well. I'm excited by everything that's going on here, bro. Y'all got a real football coach, so good luck to you.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Marcus. And, of course, we'll have more of the Tennessee spring football game on the other side as we roll on from Knoxville, Tennessee. Tim Jordan breaks a tackle and gets it in the end zone. The second touchdown of the afternoon for the first team offense wearing the orange jerseys today. First team defense feeling the wrath of their head coach in that first half, Jeremy Pruitt, as we are set for second half football here at the Tennessee Spring Game. Dave Neal, Greg McElroy, Gene Wojciechowski down on the sidelines. And impressions of Jarrett Guarantano there in the first half.
I thought he threw it very well. They missed a couple, but that's to be expected. It's still the spring. Ironing out the details of getting through a new offense, but he's been decisive. He's thrown the ball accurately down the field. He's given his receivers a chance to make plays on it. I really liked how he played in that first half. Now, there are moments, teachable moments, for instance, taking a sack during the 2-minute drill to really back the offense up. But he used his legs a couple times. He evaded pressure, and he understood the clock in his head, not trying to hold the ball too long. Now, the stats don't necessarily jump off the page. That's why you don't always go off what the stats say. I thought he was very sound on the field and in command of the huddle, too, which I think is important and something that Jeremy Pruitt's keeping a close eye on.
And had a couple of passes that were nice throws that were ruled incomplete. One on the sideline, down the far sideline, that was a big gainer. And we'll see if the white offense, the second team offense, working against the second team defense, can get some points on the board. We heard Coach Pruitt on the way to the locker room that there were a lot of things he would like to see change in the second half in terms of not letting bad things affect you on the next play.
Right, and that's one thing that he's trying to do. He's trying to make sure that this team isn't a bunch of front runners. When things are going great, it's easy to be enthusiastic. When they're not, who's going to step up and become the leader that the defense needs? That group needs to be a little better in the second half for sure.
Will McBride, who was just 1 of 6 in the first half, airs this one out. And that one is incomplete around the 35-yard line. He's had one pass intercepted. But McBride just hasn't shown what Guarantano has shown.
Let's keep in mind, too, he's going against the second team defense, but he's also operating with the second team offense. It's a lot tougher to be in Will McBride's shoes because a lot of the guys that he's out there sharing the field with, they haven't played a whole lot.
Richard Mize making that catch, but a flag will come in. He'll get it out to the 30-yard line, a gain of about 4.5. But yeah, you mentioned that. I mean, this offensive line, 11 scholarship guys, and some of them are banged up. So, I mean, they don't even have really.
Personal foul, face mask on the defense. 15-yard penalty from the end of the run. Automatic, first down.
I mean, they're using some walk-ons right now on the O-line.
They are, and they're using freshmen that were recruited to play defensive line that had to make the switch just so they could have a full scrimmage, a full allotment of players. So let's not look at the second team's offense's inefficiency and say, oh my goodness, we need to worry, we need to be very concerned about the depth. It's not that. They just have some players right now because of numbers that are being forced to play positions that they wouldn't necessarily play when the fall rolls around.
There's one of those guys right there, Greg Emerson, who they think is going to be a tremendous player. Emerson wearing 64 today. He has been a guy that can play D-line or O-line, but certainly they think that he's got some potential to be an effective performer.
No doubt, and had to switch over, not ideal, but I think playing on the offensive line, understanding schemes and angles will help him be a better defensive lineman when he eventually goes back to the other side of the football. So sometimes seeing it from both angles can actually help you in your development. Jeremy Pruitt, former high school coach, said back in Hoover, we had guys playing both ways all the time. Why not do it here at the University of Tennessee?
Let's go down to Gene.
You know, fellas, when I was at that practice Thursday, I noticed that, all the players, from walk-ons to first-teamers, they get a lot of reps, and it's sort of the way that the practice is structured. Their periods aren't just really 2-minute, 4-minute periods. They're longer periods, and gives these assistant coaches a real chance to do some teaching and instructing with them from top all the way down to the bottom.
I think that that's imperative. They had to change the way they practice here. When I would come to practice over the last couple years, yeah, they got after it. They ran a lot of plays. But the second string guys and the third string guys and the fourth string guys, there was a lot of standing around them. The starters got reps, but the lack of development for the guys a little further down the depth chart was glaring. And that's why they're in the position that they're in. Some of those guys just haven't progressed, haven't played and haven't improved since they've gotten on campus. The way they structure practice now under Jeremy Pruitt is totally different. You never stop moving, and you're always getting game-like repetitions, which are fantastic for young players.
Paxton Brooks with a nice 50-yard punt. And you mentioned some of these coaches, and there's one right there, Tracy Rocker, who has been coaching. Obviously, he was an outstanding player, perhaps the best player, at least defensive player in the country when he was wrapping up his Auburn career. But these guys have been around, and you talk about coaching them. You got a Heisman Trophy winner in Chris Winkie, but you've got also national championships abound in this group. These guys have been to the top.
It's amazing. This is a terrific staff. I'm just so encouraged by the guys that Jeremy Pruitt surrounded himself with. When you're a first-time head coach, there's a lot going on, so having new ideas sprinkled in is huge, and he really put together a very well-respected staff that are going to recruit like gangbusters over the next several years.
Josh Palmer making the catch over Buchanan, a gain of 20. Let's go down to Gene.
Well, you know, referencing those assistant coaches, you know, when we talked to Jeremy Pruitt yesterday, one of the things that he told us guys was, you know, I think I have everything I need to win here, and if I don't, Philip Fulmer is going to get it for me. Well, one of the things that he did is that he got the money to spend on these sort of assistant coaches, guys with great reputations, great pedigree, great instructional skills. They spent the money, and they gave them contracts where there's going to be some stability here now, and that's something that was lacking in the past at times.
Yeah, these contracts are a little bit longer than most assistant coaches get, and certainly the pool of money for assistant coaches, I think, was somewhere in the neighborhood between $6 and $7 million, which is a lot of money for an assistant coach staff.
Not for Tennessee. They got deep pockets here for sure. So I'm glad to see the commitment to the coaching staff. And Jeremy Pruitt, too, I think it's important as he transitions from coordinator to head coach. He's not worried about the offense. He said, hey, Tyson Helton, you're in charge, man. That's your show. I will not infiltrate the offensive meeting rooms and say, this is what we're doing. I'll have a hand in it, sure, like we all will, but it's going to be a collective effort by a really good group of assistant coaches. The staff was just 10 out of 10 if you're going to rank them on a scale of 1 to 10. So excited for Jeremy Pruitt, this fan base and these players, that they're going to get developed by some of the best minds in the game.
There's Tyson Helton, who is back as an offensive coordinator, was an offensive coordinator at Western Kentucky before he went to Southern Cal as their quarterback coach and passing game coordinator. But Western Kentucky, they were breaking light bulbs on the scoreboard. Tim Jordan. Charles Kelly, another guy on this staff who's going to coach some. He's always going to be a defensive guy, but he's been labeled a special teams coordinator. But let's face it, I mean, he's a defensive coordinator at heart.
No doubt. He's a teacher, too. I mean, he loves it. A lot of passion and energy that you'll see from him, and has great roots throughout the Southeast. Of course, having been at Florida State, having lived in Alabama, I mean, he's been all over the place throughout the SEC. And that's one thing that you'll see with every single one of these coaches. They all have deep roots throughout the Southeast, which is huge from a recruiting standpoint.
Garantano to the wide side of the field. It's incomplete. Interesting, you know, we were talking a little bit about it in our meetings yesterday with Kevin Shear, the defensive coordinator who was at Georgia the last 3 years. But he and Jeremy Pruitt both had to go to the national championship. They had to coach their teams, but yet they were already here on the staff at Tennessee.
Right.
Trying to, I guess, do both things can be difficult. Said sometimes they'd try to schedule a call, but you know, Jeremy Pruitt was an hour earlier, and it just sometimes didn't work out. But it was a unique situation that both those guys had to get their team ready for the national championship before they could fully commit to this. Handoff goes to Chandler, and he'll get a couple of yards on that.
Just kind of a funny story about Jeremy Pruitt and Kevin Shear, his defensive coordinator. Yeah, they were on opposing sidelines. Shearer as the outside linebackers coach at Georgia, Pruitt, of course, is the defensive coordinator at Alabama. But what was comical is after the game, they shook hands. They both said, all right, man, good game. We'll see you tomorrow here in Knoxville. So it was not a lot of rest for the weary. Those guys, of course, running on empty after the recruiting period and trying to solidify a class and get going. And now trying to leave their imprint on this program moving forward.
Garantano going to the corner of the end zone, batted away at the last moment. That'll be incomplete.
Talking to some of the staff members, they said that the first 4 weeks that Jeremy Pruitt and Kevin Shear and all these guys were up here. They were here until 4 in the morning watching players, evaluating players, figuring out who to recruit, who to target in recruiting, and to think about what type of philosophy they wanted to have as a program. So they spent some hours over the last several months together, and you can tell the chemistry that the staff has.
Garantano's throw. That pass is caught. Eli Wolf, the sophomore tight end, former walk-on, got a scholarship before last season began. Brought down by Nigel Warrior, who has 6 tackles today.
Nigel Warrior has a chance to be a really special player. I'm a big fan of his. Well, his name, of course, that's just intimidating to begin with. But he's got to become a better leader. I think he's got to be more outspoken from that safety spot, aligning some of the other young guys around him. But as far as talent's concerned, he's outstanding. Just needs to be a little bit more consistent coming down from the second level.
Junior out of Duluth, Georgia. Second on the team last year in total tackles. He'll come near side with it. Austin Pope, the tight end, inside the 5 and falls forward down to the 1-yard line. Micah Abernathy bringing him down, but this is an offense that might see a little bit more tight end plays in the fall.
Yeah, I know that's a sight for sore eyes. Think of the great tight ends they've had here over the years. Jason Witten, of course, comes to mind, but there's so many others. Stalker, Austin Pope trying to become the next in line.
Can't forget Ethan Wolf, who just wrapped up his career last year. His younger brother Eli now on this team trying to make a difference. Cortez Sapp with that tackle shy of the goal line.
And Jeremy Pruitt says every time I see Ethan Wolf, I tell him, tell your brother to gain some weight. He's trying to make sure these guys are big and physical, especially at that tight end spot, so they can be multidimensional, not just route runners.
Eli Wolf checking in around 225. Handoff left side. No sign of a touchdown yet. They're going to say shy of the goal line for Tim Jordan, who already has 1 touchdown today.
I like this right here. Little goal line action. How about the defense, man? Those last 2 plays on the goal line might have been the best 2 plays played by that white defense all day long. And this is where your identity comes to the forefront. It's not in the end zone until it's in. Let's see if the defense can buckle down and force a 4th down decision for Jeremy Pruitt.
3rd down and inches. And that will be a touchdown for Ty Chandler. And the Orange, the first team offense, racking up some points. 26 on the board. Garantano leads another touchdown drive for Tennessee's first team offense. He's now 10 of 17 for 138. Chandler has 7 carries for 37 yards. Point after is up and good. So a 27-0 game. When we come back, we'll talk a little recruiting. We've got great softball action coming your way Monday night at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central, as 10th-ranked Tennessee meets number 17 Alabama in the final game of the 3-game series from Tuscaloosa Monday night right here on the SEC Network, also streaming live on the ESPN app. All 13 teams in the SEC ranked in the top 35 in the RPI. Amazing. I didn't think they could improve on last year's success overall, but they have certainly shown that here in 2018. The Orange team, which consists of the first team offense, working against the white team, which has the first team defense. And the offense has been pretty dominating today for the Orange team at 27-0. Josh Dobbs on hand. Boy, they'd like to have him run the show. A lot of teams would. We'll come back, talk with Craig Hallberg, recruiting director at ESPN. Well, the Tennessee Volunteers, you look at their recruiting class coming in, they've got some guys that certainly could be difference makers for them in this upcoming season, and they need some bodies. And, you know, there'll be another batch making their way here in the fall, and To talk a little bit more about recruiting and specifically Tennessee's recruiting, their objectives moving forward as recruiting coordinator for ESPN, Craig Halbert, who joins us. And Craig, thanks for spending some time with us. And just kind of break down how Coach Pruitt was able to, I guess, survive his recruiting in such a short amount of time, and how they were able to bring in some quality players. And what do you make of the big picture?
Well, it's always difficult when a coach comes in. Anytime a coach takes over a program, you really got to give them a full year before you can really begin to judge how they may do. But for Jeremy Pruitt coming into this situation, guys, if you remember, and I think a lot of people don't talk about it, and that is great for Tennessee football, but how disastrous that coaching search was, and how they were really kind of becoming the butt of jokes throughout the country when that was going on. But ultimately, they wound up landing on a coach in Jeremy Pruitt. He seems to be an outstanding fit. So even though they had to go through some rough times, they were able to get him on board. When you guys talked about it, he was there at Alabama. He had a continued route to the national championship game. I actually think that was a very good thing for him to do, not only for his commitment to Alabama, but for him as a recruiter at Tennessee as well, because it showed his commitment to the players that he is with. But also, it also gave good pub to that Tennessee program, because whenever you would see a picture of Jeremy Pruitt on the sideline coaching for Alabama in the national championship game, Tennessee would get worked into the mix. So I think he played that very well in maintaining his relationships there, but also helping the Tennessee program by doing that. And then he put together a good staff, and they got out on the road, and I think they did a nice job of recouping those players within the state, like Alontae Taylor, one of the top players, bringing him back in the mix when he had decommitted for a while, and also hit the junior colleges pretty hard as well.
Jeremy Pruitt's an outstanding recruiter. There's no denying that, Greg. His staff is littered with guys with incredible ties to the Southeast. He talked to us yesterday, said he's got to make Atlanta a priority. He's got to do well in Charlotte. They're playing the first game of the year in Charlotte, coincidentally, which is fantastic for this program and the exposure in that area. What parts of the country does Tennessee need to access in order to get the quality players here that Jeremy Pruitt's trying to target?
Yeah, well, good recruiting, Greg, starts at home. And he's right. You got to win in-state. The ESPN 300 comes out this week, and there could be as many as 10 players in the state of Tennessee in the ESPN 300. So building a fence around your own borders is key. Then you're right. I think they want to win that 5-hour radius around their program. Get to those places north of Atlanta. You mentioned North Carolina, dipping a little bit to Alabama, maybe going a little bit north. Because those are the players that are going to be most likely to be able to get on your campus unofficially, not just officially, but unofficially, probably have the most knowledge of your program. But then I think getting broader from there, they want to get national as well. When he took over, they went out west. Guys like Elijah Griffin, Isaac Taylor-Stewart, who wound up signing with USC, but they tried to get out there, make some impressions, and I think they're going to continue to do that. But while they may want to also get a little bit more national in their approach, I think he's aware that it's not about just getting good players, it's about getting the right players who fit their program. He was at Alabama, and they played Clemson in a national championship game.
Greg, we got to take a break. Greg, we're going to come back. We got to take a quick break. That was the end of the quarter. We're going to come back. We're going to have more with your conversation about this Tennessee recruiting. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment.
More.
Tennessee spring game continues. The first team offense putting it on that first team defense, and second team offense yet to get any points on the board. 27-0 Orange out in front. Craig Halbert, who is recruiting coordinator for ESPN, talking some recruiting with us here by phone. And Craig, you were talking earlier about some of the places where Jeremy Pruitt's going to have to go and find some players. And big picture, what just kind of finish that thought before we went to break.
Yeah, you know what? Recruiting is a crucial part of success. But it's not about just getting 4- and 5-star guys. It's about getting talented players that fit your program. And I was talking about Alabama and Clemson. You're looking at two programs that really haven't missed on many guys. Clemson last year signed a top 10 class by only signing 17 guys. They do an outstanding job of getting good players that fit their program and keeping them in the program. And I think in the big picture, that's what Tennessee wants to do. Not just getting good players, but getting the right players that fit their culture and where they want to go.
Now, obviously, this year wasn't a full 25 just because of the numbers. I think 21 guys he was able to bring in this recruiting class. Some of those guys are early enrollees, but when you look at the overall class, and maybe you can even throw in some grad transfers if you want into that mix. Who can be contributors in the fall?
Well, I think you got to look at the junior college players. They've signed a handful in this class. Only one of them, Jordan Allen, are already on campus. But anytime you go to the junior college ranks, you're usually doing so to fill needs and get immediate contributors. I heard you and Greg talking about the tight ends a little bit earlier. They got the #1 JUCO tight end in the nation, Dominic Wood-Anderson. He's got good speed, tremendous body control, excellent hands. I think he could be a guy who could really help in the passing game. His weakness at this stage is as a blocker, but I think as a receiving target, he could be very helpful. Then also Emmett Gooden. He's a defensive tackle, very stout, can do a nice job. And Jameer Johnson out of Arizona Western College. You talked about some of the need there for depth on the offensive line a little bit earlier. He's physical and he's aggressive. I love Brant Lawless, in-state player. Once again, you always got to do well at home. Brant Lawless out of Nashville Christian. He's got great size. He's explosive. He's got to work on some of the little things, but his flaws are correctable. But he's a guy who gets off the football and plays 100 miles per hour. So I think those are some key guys, especially in the trenches, because as you guys know, Greg, you know, you're going to be successful. You better be successful in the trenches in the SEC.
Craig, one last thing, and make it quick for us, and that is when you look at, I guess, some of the verbals out there, what does the future look like for the next class to come rolling in here so far?
Well, I think, you know, you're going to see a smaller group again, depending on, you know, attrition on how things go. But I think you'll probably see about 15 to 20 players signed. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go heavy JUCO again with another handful of players as they kind of get their layout mapped out and get into school. But I think that is going to be key for them. And Greg was talking about staff and how good it is. You also got to look at some of the off-field guys, some of the analyst-type guys. They went up to New York and hired a very successful junior college coach, Joey Ossipet, who helped probably branch them out a little bit up into the Northeast as well. So it's not just those on-field coaches, but I think behind the scenes, something that we very much learn. Your staff, not just your route.
Well, Craig, I really appreciate you spending some time with us, getting us caught up on what's going on in the recruiting world, which is the second season of college football. Appreciate the time, and have fun down the road.
Always good talking to you guys. Take care.
Greg Halbert, recruiting coordinator for ESPN, joining us as we move into the fourth quarter here of the Tennessee spring game. And McBride has that pass knocked down. Let's go back down and visit with Gene.
You know, guys, when we talked to Jeremy Pruitt, remember what he said when Kevin Sherrod and him were talking about him at Georgia, Jeremy at Alabama. At the end of the day, they thought, and this is how these guys think when it comes to recruiting. After that national championship game was over, they thought it was better that Alabama won because Jeremy Pruitt was affiliated with the winning team, and he's the head coach here. Jeremy Pruitt has been so busy during this whole process, he hasn't even had a chance to fully decorate his office. And when I was talking to Philip Fulmer yesterday, getting back to that idea of recruiting the best in-state players, he said, yes, you've got to get those guys, but they have to be invested in your program. He thinks if you get those best half dozen or so players in state, guys who are truly engaged and invested in a program, then you go out and you start going regionally and then occasionally nationally. But he thinks the core of any program, especially a state university like this, is those in-state kids.
No denying that, Gene. And obviously this state is attracting more and more people to the area, especially the mid-state. It's a state that's population is growing exponentially. You just got to make sure when they move here, they become Vols fans immediately.
10:32 to go in the fourth quarter. We'll step aside. Back in a moment. There he is, Joe Moorhead. Much like Jeremy Pruitt here in Knoxville. A big day for him in Starkville as he debuts his maroon and white team for the very first time in front of the Bulldog faithful. That spring game coming up right after this. And boy, you talk about a guy that came with some high accolades.
Yeah, he can do such a great job when it comes to game planning. I'm just so amazed with that hire. Just completely out of left field. Just didn't see it coming. But man, they did their due diligence. They said this guy's an offensive mind that can help take us to the next level. I'm very optimistic about the direction of the Southeastern Conference with some of the coaching hires that were made this past offseason.
Ty Chandler off the left side. He'll pick up 8 on that carry. Boy, plenty of coaching changes in the Southeastern Conference. Arkansas will go with Chad Morris. Dan Mullen goes down to Gainesville. Joe Moorhead replaces Coach Mullen. Coach Pruitt here. And Jimbo Fisher. I think that's the one that intrigues me the most, because I think that there is a ton of talent.
Oh, man.
In College Station.
There's a lot of talent. It's just getting the most out of that talent. And they just haven't been able to do that for whatever reason. It's really not all that dissimilar to Tennessee. They've recruited well, but when the guys got on campus, they just never progressed the way we all projected. Now, they've had a lot of talented guys, and Jimbo Fisher, I did their spring game last week. They're going to be sneaky good this year. I mean, they might not necessarily get picked up there near the top come media days, but they're going to be a team you don't want to play.
You have to settle the quarterback position. Have to.
I mean, but think about every single school in this league outside of Mississippi State, Auburn, and Missouri. Everyone's got a quarterback competition going on right now, so it's not like you're operating behind the 8 ball.
Right.
Everybody is competing at that spot, which is good for the league.
I mean, it's hard to believe Jake Fromm, who led him to a national championship, is in a quarterback competition right now. I mean, it's just crazy over in Athens.
It's crazy. It really is. But that's what happens when the #1 recruit in the country, Justin Fields, decides to call Georgia home.
In Alabama, same scenario.
Same scenario. It's amazing. I mean, a guy that's 22-2 or 24-2 as a starter could potentially get sat down. It's a little unique, is it not?
Yes, it is. Very. I don't know that I've ever seen it, to be honest with you, on so many levels and so many teams. There goes Chandler's getting a nice workout today. Only a yard on that play. Chandler today has 11 carries, 53 yards. Jordan, who has been working with the white team, has had a pretty nice day carrying the football. 9 carries for 57 yards.
I kind of like these running backs here at Tennessee. Now, they're a little bit undersized. And Jeremy Pruitt has addressed that by going and getting Madre London from Michigan State, who's a little bit bigger, a little more comfortable running between the tackles. And John Kelly was a star. I loved him. Absolutely loved him at running back last year on this team. But Ty Chandler and Tim Jordan, I think they have a chance to be a solid contributing group when it comes to the carries that are going to be going around.
There is Jordan there, and you certainly mentioned that another grad transfer that will be coming this way, and Madre London from Michigan State. Some size to him, had 8 touchdowns last year for the Spartans, and he will definitely bring a dimension that this new look offense will need.
He likes it between the tackles. I mean, it's not every running back does. A lot of guys like to make their hay on the perimeter, and a lot of the guys that have been recruited to the prior regime, they like it to be on the perimeter. They're fast, they're speedy, they're great in space. But can they battle for tough yardage? And I think that's one thing that Jeremy Pruitt tried to address by going and getting Madre London, knowing that he can be that down in, down out between the tackles type of back. And Ty Chandler, Tim Jordan, and others can do some nice things in the open field, creating some explosive plays on the perimeter.
You see Princeton Fant there. There's a guy that's been all over the place. They've used him number of positions. Didn't play last year, but he's been between tight end, wide receiver, linebacker. Now they've got a big body back there at running back. We'll see if he sticks. That's been one of the discussions here. They've taken a lot of guys and moved them on offense to defense, and talking to the coaches, even though they may be playing a different position this spring and where they're all spring, doesn't mean they'll be there in the fall.
And it's not only beneficial to Jeremy Pruitt from a depth standpoint and being able to practice with numbers and get repetitions, but I think he also is able to find out, all right, who are the unselfish guys on this team? You know, who are the guys that, you know, it might not necessarily be in their long-term best interest to switch, but for the time being, they're willing to help the squad. So let's put this defensive lineman on offensive line, or this wide receiver at running back. I think that's one thing that hasn't gotten talked about enough, is Jeremy Pruitt's learning who are the guys that are truly invested in the program by kind of figuring out which guys are willing to move and change and try new things.
Chip Omer on that carry. Alvin Kamara right there. Boy, how kind of year did he have?
He's unbelievable.
With New Orleans.
He is unbelievable. And you knew he was going to be that type of player. I mean, I felt very confident last year throughout the draft process that Alvin Kamara was going to be a star. And then he goes to New Orleans, and I said, okay, we better put super in front of star. Because if you're in New Orleans, that style of offense with his skill set, perfect. Match made in heaven. What a year and a career he's going to have.
Here's McBride. He is touched around the 48-yard line, a gain of 7. One guy that we haven't really talked about that I think could be an X factor for them is Jauan Jennings. And it was just a debacle last year for Jauan. Got hurt in that opening game against Georgia Tech, wrist injury, kept him out the rest of the year. It actually got kicked off the team 3 days before the season finale against Vanderbilt, but was able to come back in with this new staff. And Jauan is a playmaker. I mean, he's a guy that, you know, if you get the ball in his hands, positive things can happen. Very surprised with the response that Jeremy Pruitt gave to us when you asked him about Jauan, and the fact that this guy, he had heard all the stuff, but said he hasn't seen any of it at all.
Jeremy Pruitt said to Jauan when he first got on campus, he said, look, if you want to be a part of this team, you got to do this, 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 and this. Gave him a checklist, required accountability. And he said he made the hurdles so high that he wasn't sure that he'd be able to clear them. He thought that, okay, well, we'll challenge him. If he can do it, then great, we'll have him on our team. But the likelihood is he's probably not going to be able to fulfill all the obligations that we're going to put in front of him. He said not only has he done that, but he's surpassed the expectations of what Jeremy Pruitt had laid out for him. Says he has an edge to him. He's every guy in the building's favorite player because he loves the game. He's passionate about the game. It almost got taken away from him. And I think he's really appreciative of the new opportunity that Jeremy Pruitt's been giving him.
We'll see how that plays out in the fall. Timeout on the field. Back in a moment. Hey, tonight at 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 Central, the SEC Now team will be back to break down all the baseball and softball games on the schedule. And a very busy weekend around the Southeastern Conference. Nobody covers the SEC like we do. And, of course, you can always watch on the ESPN app. Oh, a little flea flicker action. McBride going up top, looking downfield, and a little bit short with the pass, but a flag comes in for pass interference, perhaps. He was trying to hit Tyler Bird. Tyler's another guy that we haven't really talked about, but he's a young man that's got some ball skills.
Pass interference on the defense, number 10. 15-yard penalty from the previous spot. Automatic first down.
I think this wide receiver group has a chance to be pretty solid. And Tyler Bird is one of those guys that could really blossom now in this new pro-style system. Now, there are not going to be as many receivers out on the field as we've seen from Tennessee in recent years. Expect it to be more 3 receiver formations, 2 receiver formations. But I think there's some talent. There's some quality at that position. It might be their deepest position group on the team. There's no clear one right now, which I know they're trying to iron out, whether it's Brandon Johnson or Marquez Callaway or Jauan Jennings when he gets back. But I think that there's some depth, there's some quality, there's some guys that know how to play winning football at that position. And it's going to be helpful as they're breaking in either Garantano or working in a grad transfer quarterback in Keller Christ.
McBride snaps one down the middle, and that pass is caught by Williams, and he will dive for the end zone, give him the touchdown. 35 yards, and the white team will not be shut out in this spring game.
That was a heck of a run after catch. Williams making a couple guys miss, extending to the end zone. That's got to bring a smile. I know Jeremy Pruitt's a defensive guy, but that's got to bring a smile to his face. Because last year, when things were going south, when things weren't going well, this team just didn't show the same resilience that it needs to show. Right here, the white team has had some struggles. They've had some difficulty, but they're playing all the way to the end. It's a great job by Williams getting the 6.
And for McBride, he's now 6 of 17, 71 yards, a touchdown, and a pick.
Yeah, I mean, that's just effort right there. That's great effort.
Little want to, right?
Talk about
little want to.
Little want to. Little want to. Little have to.
Right.
The have to. But I think that Jeremy Pruitt, he's just trying to instill in these guys a sense of confidence. And he wants to make sure that they're the same guys every day, and they can't be a roller coaster. Can't be too emotional, can't be up and down, steady all the way through. I know that's been one of the biggest points that he's tried to get across to his team over the last 4 months. Consistency, attention to detail, and being physical throughout the course of 4 quarters of the game.
For more, let's go down to Gene.
Hey, fellas, as someone who sort of has a dog in the fight, I guess, being an alum here, I can tell you during the chaos of that coaching search, you know, Tennessee was the butt of a lot of jokes, and most of them self-inflicted and deserved. But, you know, sort of like being in a demolition derby, and Tennessee got knocked in the back, in the front, and the side, and still was able to sort of exit the vehicle with just bruises mostly. Maybe a broken bone or two. So all things considered, I think they feel pretty good about where they are right now.
Yeah, you've got a little invested in this program, Gene. Let's not get away from that a little bit. I mean, you decided to come here and walk on, and look at him right there wearing his 12 jersey.
Oh, I just love it. I just love it.
The hair's good.
Where'd the hair go? Gino, where'd the hair? Look at the flow.
You know, I sold it for. I don't know. You know what? This is against my. This was against my decision here. I did not want that photo shown. Damn you.
So where is your jersey right now?
My jersey's like in the 4th drawer of my dresser back in Chicago, Illinois. But every so often I bring it out and wonder, why are those numbers so far apart?
Why were they so far apart?
The conclusion that we come to, Gene,
that's a jersey they give to walk on.
No, this is what it is. This is what I think. I think you were number 2 for a little while, and then a big-time recruit got on campus, said, I want number 2. They said, okay, we'll make Gino, we'll make him 12.
Yeah.
Let's sew this 1 on the right side of his jersey.
So it looks like my mom pasted it on there.
Hey, a lot of us would have liked to have walked on to a program like Tennessee. So
absolutely,
kudos for at least being a part. However small or big it was.
Very small.
Still a part nonetheless, Gino.
Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool to be here.
I can tell you this, man, and just as someone that follows this conference, is passionate about this conference, obviously there's not a lot of love lost between Tennessee and Alabama fans. We get that. But I can say this, as a fan of this league, it's better when Tennessee's good.
Absolutely.
And you know what? They are moving in that direction. They might not be there right now, but they will get there. And I'm so excited for this fan base to have stability and a direction that they can follow and rally around.
Eli Wolf making the catch from Garantano, and I could sense it last night going around downtown, and people had smiles on their faces, and I think they're just excited that there's a new direction, and they're excited about what Jeremy Pruitt can bring to them, and I think they're all realistic too. Like, it's not going to happen next year.
No, I mean, it takes some time, and you have to go through those growing pains as a program. But the optimism and the belief is real, and it should be, because Jeremy Pruitt's the right man for the job. And I know that he's going to get this place to where it needs to go. And they're going to do it with a style that they've had success with for decades. We're going to see more pro style. We're going to see what we saw under Phil Fulmer in the 90s. We're going to see great wide receivers. We're going to see a talented defense that's attacking. Great play in the secondary, which is Pruitt's expertise. I'm just really optimistic about the direction of this program.
4th down coming up from midfield. Garantano, 13 of 22, 163. Trying to add to those numbers, and that one is batted around and almost intercepted. They were looking for Josh Palmer. Marquill Osborne in on the coverage for that white team. As you look at the schedule, and boy, does not start with an easy test. It's West Virginia and Charlotte. That will be something. That'll get your attention in fall practice, won't it?
There'll be a sense of urgency throughout summer and fall, I can assure you. And it's going to have to be, knowing the tempo that West Virginia plays with. That'll be a challenge for a secondary that's going to look a lot different here 5 months from now. It's a challenging schedule. There's no denying that. From September 22nd, that 5-game stretch, when you go to Auburn, you're playing at South Carolina, you have Alabama, that 5-week stretch is really difficult. So I think it's important that Jeremy Pruitt continues to instill confidence in these guys, because if it goes south, it could. but they'll be better in the long run for it.
That pass is picked off. Shannon Reed with the interception. But that schedule certainly, you know, you look down the stretch and you go Kentucky, Missouri, Vanderbilt. In past years, you might say, okay, we'll chalk up those wins because Tennessee dominated November for years.
Sure.
But lately, that hasn't been the case, and you certainly have your eyes on Missouri.
I do. I think Missouri can score a lot of points, and Tennessee fans know that. Obviously, last year, that game got away from them. Now, I think that 5-game slate, September 22nd to October 27th, those 5 games in a 6-week period, because the bye week is mixed in, that will define the season. And I know the Tennessee fans won't like to hear this, but if they go to a bowl game with the youth that they're probably going to have to rely on, that's an incredible achievement, knowing what this program has had to endure. So I think that's the goal for this year. Try to make it to the postseason, try to beat a couple teams that people aren't expecting, and just be competitive in all 12 games. It's all you can ask for, especially with a team that's likely to be very, very young.
Palmer with a nice catch from Garantano, 34 yards. Palmer's making a few nice catches today. Clock running down. They're in a hurry-up offense. Garantano pump fakes and delivers a little bit high. Trying to get one more touchdown on the board. 31 seconds to go in this spring game. Guys will take some time off. Coaches will, I guess, catch their breath because this group, they really have to go back on the road and recruit right after this.
Right.
But sometime in June, I think there's about a 3 or 4 week period in June leading into July where these guys can actually settle in a little bit. But it has been a grind for this staff.
Yeah, it has. It's been nonstop. That's what they expected. That's what they signed up for, and they're fully embracing the grind that it's been.
Matter of fact, Gene asked Coach Pruitt in our meetings yesterday, have you had a day off yet? And he thought, yeah. And he goes, yeah, I took Easter. One day.
Well, that's a good day to take. But it's funny, man. I actually was talking to I know a bunch of people in this program, of course, so many of which with ties to Alabama and throughout the Southeast. Gotten to know a lot of people associated, and they're all very excited. But I asked him, I said, where's Jeremy living? Did he find a house yet? He said, no, I think he's spent more nights at the office than he has anywhere else. So I think he's looking forward to taking a deep breath and getting back to work on Monday.
Garantano over the middle, and nice catch. That'll be Eli Wolf into the checkerboard for a touchdown. 29 yards out. Good catch by Wolf. Ball was a little bit behind him.
That was really well executed, though. Exploiting the middle of the field, involving your tight ends in the passing game. It's a heck of a catch by Wolf, dragging it in. And Garantano, man, I know Keller Christ is yet to arrive, but do not sleep on number 2. He's going to be a difficult guy to beat out of the position, given the way he's played throughout spring and the way he's looked today. Very comfortable in this new offense.
Cimaglia will attempt the point after, and that will do it for this 2018 Tennessee spring game. The first team offense puts up 34 points on the board. Jarrett Garantano, 15 of 27, 226, a couple of touchdowns, no picks, and he certainly made a couple of throws that'll get your eyes open. Well, let's get the impression from the head coach of Tennessee. Let's go down to Gene.
Coach, your first spring game as a head coach here at Tennessee, your general impressions?
You know, we had some guys that competed out there today, and I think we had some guys who didn't. So it'll be interesting when we get a chance to watch the tape, see how guys responded when things got tough. I saw some guys that done a nice job, but we'll see after we watch it.
What's next for you now as you move forward in this program?
Well, we got to clean up this spring practice. We got to continue to lift, get ready for summer. We got a big summer ahead of us, lots to learn.
All right, thank you so much, Coach.
Thanks, Gene. Our final score, the first team offense puts up 34 points, 34-7. Orange wins it. Greg McElroy, Gene Wojciechowski, I'm Dave Neal. So long from Knoxville. Time to send you to Starkville, Mississippi State. Spring football coming up.